All right, it's 7:02, so I think we're going to get started. I'm Liz Bement, President of Upper Fells Point Improvement Association. We have Brian Seal, he's the Vice President.
Okay.
Are you on, Brian?
Yep, I'm here. Hey, guys.
Okay. And we have Pascal Patton, he's the Treasurer. Say hello, Pascal.
Good evening, everybody.
Joe Becker, Secretary. Joe?
John, hello, everyone.
John. I'm going to get it straight. I swear I will. Joe Whitford, Parliamentarian.
I
Joe?
take the roll call.
Okay. So who is here for the first time? David, are you here for the first time?
Yeah.
So we know your address. So if you want to tell us about, where you came from or why you moved to the neighborhood or something short.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm David Miller, 30 years old. I'm earning my MBA at Johns Hopkins, and I've been here for a few months now. I signed a year lease, so we'll see about after that.
Great. Who else is new to the neighborhood? New first meeting. Anyone else's first meeting?
So this is not my first meeting, or I've been to like real life ones. It's my first virtual meeting. Does that count?
Okay. Well, welcome.
But I've been in
Josephina,
7 years almost.
what's your
so.
last name?
What's your last name?
It's
Josephina?
Fernandez. I'm trying to change my name on it's Fernandez. It's on the chat.
Oh, good. I didn't see that yet.
Okay, I'm just going to say one
Yeah.
more time that everybody that just got on to the meeting, if you don't have your full name up or if you have a phone number up, if you can please type your full name into chat so that Joe, our parliamentarian, can record you as being in the meeting. That would be great. Okay, so we're going to get right into our first speaker, or our guest speaker, who is Ryan Dorsey. He's the 3rd District Council person, and he is going to discuss a bill that he has in legislation. It's Bill 20-0561, the Fossil Fuel Infrastructures Bill. Ryan.
Thank you. Thanks, Liz. Thanks so much to everybody for having me. Hang on, my wife just stepped in the room, so I'm going to put in my headphones here to maybe cut out any background noise or anything. Thanks so much for having me. I think this is the first time to Upper Fells Point meeting, so it's good to be back. I came some time ago and spoke about complete streets, and I think that that's a good foundation for talking about this bill. That over the last 4 years, I've put a lot of work into trying to reshape how we as a city approach neighborhood and community development through the design and allocation of space, particularly in the public right of way. But I think that that's just really kind of a stand-in for how we think about public space as a whole. And Complete Streets really talks about making sure that our public right-of-way environment is accommodating of not just accommodating of users' needs, but prioritizing the most equitable and sustainable modes of transportation, and part of that is understanding that this is really makes for stronger communities. And so after passing that, I continue to look for other policies that can help support that modus operandi, that ethos. And one of those things is to look at how parking minimums in zoning codes affect the way our communities are built, or if our communities are built, who can live in our communities, and what our communities place a priority on. I should say that this bill addresses 3 things, but I think that I was asked to really come and talk about one of them in particular. I'll just briefly mention that the other two things have to do with gas stations. There are 180 gas stations in the city. There are 80 land miles or 81 land square miles in the city. That means that we have more than one gas station per square mile anywhere in the city. And even at a time when gas use is up because more people are driving more miles in less fuel efficient vehicles than ever because of the proliferation of SUVs, nobody is hard up for a place to find a place to get gas. Gas stations are only expanding in order to meet kind of corporate bottom lines. And so part of this bill would restrict more gas stations from coming into existence in the city. Another part of this bill addresses the fact that nowhere in the world are public parks being converted into parking lots except here in Baltimore City. There's no successful city anywhere that I can find that is reallocating public space in parks to become parking lots. And we have had 2 bills to do that before the city council just in the last 6 months. And there's a likelihood that we'll see more of those in the future. So prohibiting that would be the other part of this bill. But I think that the most intriguing part of this bill for most people is the element related to parking minimums. There are a lot of ways to talk about parking minimums. One of the things that they contribute to is a higher cost of living for everybody. One of the kind of benchmarks for that is the cost of housing. Parking minimums will increase the cost of housing for a person, typically in the range of about 17%. We have a deep affordable housing crisis in Baltimore City. And we also have a joblessness problem in Baltimore City. And both are affected by parking minimums because our zoning code says that you can't build housing and you can't open a business unless you also allocate space off street for parking. We're literally saying we know that people desperately need housing, and we also know that people desperately need jobs, but we're not going to allow you to create new housing, and we're not going to allow you to get use and occupancy permits for your new businesses unless you create off-street parking. We're making housing opportunity and job opportunity contingent upon whether or not you also have the resources and the land to create off-street parking, even when that is detrimental to other goals that a neighborhood might have. For example, if you were thinking about, say, a block of West North Avenue, maybe the block west of Pennsylvania Avenue, you got a whole lot of row homes over there that could be used for small storefront businesses in some cases, and have been historically. In order to open a cafe on one floor of one of those, and have, say, a couple of apartments above that, you'd probably have to also buy the house next door and tear it down just in order to build parking spaces. You probably actually have to buy that 2 houses next door and tear both of them down just in order to create off-street parking spaces. And even if you had the money to do that, you'd be creating fewer opportunities for other businesses to open up next door to yours to increase the likelihood that, hi Shannon Conway, how you doing? Decreasing the likelihood that other people are going to be coming to other businesses and patronizing your business while they're all there, and having that kind of symbiotic relationship of community-based businesses. I feel like this is a pretty basic way of looking at it, that development is not being driven. The number of parking spaces that multifamily housing or single family housing, the number of parking spaces that are being created in developments in the city right now are in no way being driven by the fact that Baltimore City requires off-street parking spaces. They're being driven by market demand, where if you were to take away parking minimums, developers would still say, hey, look, in this location, there really isn't that much on-street parking. And if we're going to be able to bring in, whether it's residential or commercial tenants to this space, to this new development, to these businesses, to these houses, to these apartments, those tenants are really going to demand that there is some level of off-street parking. So regardless of whether or not there is a minimum in the city's code, we're going to create off-street parking anyway. What removing parking minimums does is say, but you don't have to. We, the city of Baltimore, aren't going to tell you that you can't open a business, that you can't create housing, or that you have to request a special exemption in order to be able to create housing or create businesses unless you create off-street parking. And so Baltimore is not, you know, if Baltimore were to pass this, and I'll make a point now to say that there is no chance that this is moving forward this term. And if I wanted to reintroduce it, I'd have to reintroduce it in the next term. And frankly, I probably wouldn't introduce the bill again in exactly the same way that it's written, with all these other components baked into it as well. But there is zero chance that this bill is moving forward in any way, to any degree. It will not get a hearing before the end of this term. Depending on what would happen with a bill being reintroduced in the next term, we have yet to know what the next city council president is going to decide in terms of what committees exist, who will chair those committees, how bills will be assigned to committees. I just want to really emphasize that I'm glad to talk about the policy and the idea and to hear from folks about the idea, but there's no chance that there's any movement on this at this time.
Okay, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. Thanks.
I'd like to say I really like the first two components of the bill, which you briefly described, and I'm all for those. But I'm not for subdividing our housing stock. We're a very small community. We're 12 blocks, 3 blocks wide, 4 blocks long. And what this does is removing the parking takes a tool away from us when we're fighting a zoning issue or a housing density thing. We're really not fighting it on Broadway or the commercial strips. There, we're more interested in, I would say, the architectural aspects of the building. But, I don't know. And some people have said this will lower the rent, but all the people coming here wanting to subdivide these buildings are looking at market rate. They're not talking worker force housing. If you had a component in that bill where we could say this is going to be a worker force housing, you could get some people such as myself behind it. But when we're just enriching a developer, I'm not so for it.
I agree with Kurt. I'm much more concerned about getting affordable housing in the neighborhood. And somehow, the gentrification that's going on in Upper Fells Point is insane. I've been here for over 30 years and I could park very easily for 20 of those years. And the last guy that came before us with a proposal, I asked him if it was affordable housing and he said, no, it was, market rate housing. I would like to see energy going into making sure that developers are building affordable housing for working class people in the city. The parking issue is not that important to me. I want to see some affordable housing in this town again.
Hey, me too. I think they're not mutually exclusive of one another. Hi, Barbara.
Hi, how you doing, Ryan?
I'm great. I'm great. Glad to see you.
Good to see you too, hon.
Ryan, I was wondering, have you seen bills that are structured like this that are successful in other cities about like making progress towards the ends that you have? Because I'm definitely supportive of more public transit and less reliance on having like one car per person. But I don't know that doing it in this structure, I'm not sure how that would work. And the second thing was just to support what Barb and Kurt were saying, which is that the people who are looking to subdivide without providing space for cars are people who don't have to commute. There are students who are looking for luxury housing who can walk to Hopkins in our neighborhood. I guess.
Yeah, so other cities have passed and had bills introduced also to address parking minimums. They've been brought up in a number of places. I have to look at the list. Honestly, this bill has not been on the top of my mind lately. I'd have to look that up, but offhand, I think that Buffalo, Seattle, Minneapolis, a number of other places have had parking minimum bills before them, some of which have been, I guess most of which I'm aware of, have been successful, but hard fought battles. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of trying to unpack your question a little bit at the same time.
So the first part was just like, where has this worked? Like, where have you seen this type of bill be successful? Like, why did you pick this structure to try?
When you say structure, you mean
Like
this
you're
idea of
away...
eliminating parking minimums?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I pursue it on its merits, I guess, as I described them, right? It makes no sense to me that we would say in a city where we need more housing, period, and especially affordable housing, that we would say you cannot build housing without parking, off-street parking.
I guess I'm just wondering why you're not focused more on providing like public transportation infrastructure instead of like...
I've spent the entire term basically focused on that. This is just kind of another aspect of this. There's kind of a whole suite of things that marry together kind of the nexus of land use and transportation, right? So my Complete Streets ordinance is all about ensuring that people have ways to get around, adequate means to get around, regardless of whether or not they own a car. Another way to look at this nexus of land use and transportation is to say that if we really want to bolster walkability, bikeability, and public transit ridership, then we need to increase housing density in areas close to transit lines, and we need to increase housing density in more walkable places and around Main Street business corridors. So another bill, for example, that would support this nexus of land use and transportation being more successful might be one that says that that it is easier to develop higher density housing or modestly more dense housing. Right now, for example, Baltimore City says that in an R3 zone district where you have like a big 4-bedroom house on a significantly sized plot of land, it's a detached home, that you under no circumstances can have even 2 apartments in there. It's not possible. There's no legal way you can build 2 apartments in a giant house, even when that giant house is 50 feet from a high frequency transit line. So again, another bill
related to distance from transit lines might actually see a community like ours be more supportive of it. I don't know that we would see the same use of high density housing if there was, like, if it was limited to places that were closed, because we're missing a big piece of public transit here.
But think about, okay, so think about a practical implication here is if somebody wanted to build housing, if somebody wanted to build a 10 apartment building, for example, the law says now you also have to create a minimum 10 off-street parking spaces. Those off-street parking spaces come at a development cost of about
It's cold again. You don't see smoke coming over it?
$30,000 each.
I'm sorry, can everybody please mute if you're not speaking?
Am I mute?
I'm just going to wait one more second here.
The host can also mute everybody at once.
Yeah, but then can Ryan unmute himself?
I'm unmuted.
Okay, all right.
Thanks. So to build 10 apartments, you got to build also 10 off-street parking spaces. That means at the cost that it tends to cost to develop those off-street parking spaces, you're talking about 25 in Baltimore, often more like $30,000 each to create those parking spaces. So you just increase the cost to do that development by $300,000. That's going to get rolled into the cost of the rent for everybody, right? You are then unlikely to see somebody who's at the income level that they commonly rely on the bus as their mode of transportation. It's unlikely that you'll see that person move in there because they can't afford the rent, because that's who rides the bus in Baltimore City. So by forcing the parking on the development, you are effectively deterring or prohibiting anybody who doesn't own a car from living in that place. And so there's a direct connection often between whether or not you have people who are going to ride public transit and whether or not you essentially force the rents to be so high that they can't afford it. So there really is a connection between housing affordability. If you think about it this way also, when I go to the grocery store, if I walk there from across the street, I pay the same amount for groceries as the person who drove there from a mile away. But part of what got factored into the cost of my groceries was the fact that the grocery store has to recoup the cost of their ownership and the taxes and the maintenance of that 200 plus parking lot out front of the Safeway or the Giant or the Save, you know.
I think my point was that our particular community does not have a walkable grocery store and does not have mass public transit. And we would love to have both those things, but how can we support a bill that having this blanket application to the city would possibly affect us differently than situations that you're talking about where it would benefit people? So maybe think about that when you're rewriting it, because it sounds like you are going back to the drawing board on some of the elements of this.
Well, I'll just say, it's just to be very transparent about that. If I were going back to the drawing board with this, I would probably introduce this aspect of the bill exactly as it is. I think that it's a good bill the way that it is. I think that we should repeal parking minimums in the city. I think that we should have parking maximums. That's my position. I welcome anybody to disagree with that, but I think that there's a whole suite of policy change that we need to move forward, and it's easier done piecemeal than it is in all at once. And I think that also, in addition to policy, there has to be also some capital expenditures and programmatic expenditures that support these, that support the pursuit of these policy changes.
So we
Brian,
have time.
Brian,
Hi, Aaron.
Hey, can I ask a quick question?
Please.
Yeah, Ryan, I think I know where you're going with the intent of the bill. I think one is it's a value statement on, wanting to, value the walkability of a community, and try less reliance on cars. I think picking up on some of the comments here, what if this was more of an incentive for developers or people like that, if you're going, you can, waive the parking requirement for, things that the city wants to see, whether it's a, affordable housing component, or instead of allocating for parking, maybe that developer allocates funding for infrastructure enhancements for walkability in the community. They're not paying the $30,000 necessarily per parking spot, but they're putting something back into the community that incentivizes the walkability component and the connectability of transportation infrastructure. So instead of like a, kind of make it more of an incentive-based, exclusion that developer could use. So that's just the way I'm thinking about it. Have you thought about that? Has there been comments to that?
Yeah. So I'll answer in a couple ways. One is ask any developer in town and they'll tell you that that doesn't work in Baltimore City. I'm not one of them, but they will across the board tell you that that doesn't work in Baltimore City. They'll also tell you, for example, similarly, they'll say, a lot of other places will create a density bonus, right? We will allow you to build your building higher than a certain maximum height if you include affordable housing in that building. Across the board, the developers tell you density bonuses don't work in Baltimore City. What I would say though, is that by, again, making it so that the housing is less costly to build in the first place means that you are more able right off the bat to conceive of your project with lower projected rents. And so you're more likely then to get people who are reliant on walking. And a big part of walkability in a community is just having people in a community who commonly walk. And so creating, I guess, that, that opportunity by saying, we're not going to force the rent to be high by tacking on tens of thousands of dollars just to the construction costs, is going to create an environment in which it's more likely that walkers will live in your neighborhood. And I think that it's also the case that you can already ask for an exception, an exemption. You can already say, I'd like to, you can go to the BMZA, for example, and say, we'd like to go forward with this project. In fact, there's one in my district, a 21 home, tiny home development that I believe they're going to be going before the housing department, the BMZA, to request a 100% abatement of the parking minimum requirement. So it already happens. This bill would actually turn those parking minimums into parking maximums and just kind of flip the table and say that developers aren't being forced to have a minimum. And if they want to exceed the maximum, then they can go before the BMZA and say, we'd like to put in more than the maximum would allow normally. So it's really wholesale about a paradigm shift of how we think about the connection between whether or not we do development and whether we tie that to whether or not people have to have off-street parking spaces.
Okay, so I think we're going to need to sort of end
I think we've
this
exceeded
right
the
now.
time that I was asked for.
Yes, we're out of time, but thank you, Ryan, very much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Liz. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Good to see everybody.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Do we want to move on to the treasurer's report? Pascal.
Yes. Thank you, Liz. So as of today, UFPA has got $10,900 cash on hand.
In the past month, our biggest expense was Neighbors Night Out. We spent $465 on that. I did want to thank the organizers for their thrift. We had budgeted $100, but we understood, fundraising did not work as expected this year. So I do appreciate that they kept the expenditures for that under control. Beautification, there was a big chunk of the annual expenses came due. There were $285 spent there, and $255 were spent on the community garden.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, beautification update.
Yes, hi, everybody. So a couple of things. I actually, just to piggyback on what Pascal said, is that we actually will be spending about $2,000 left of our beautification budget before the end of the year. So we will be drawing down on what was approved earlier. And that will be going towards a match of the grant that we received from the Southeast CDC Spruce Up for the 18 tree pits. So I just want to let everybody know that the mosaic medallions are underway. We've gotten over more than half of them done, and the rest will be done this week. And they're really cool looking, and we'll be sharing some photos later along the way, but that project is well underway. We also just received notice today or yesterday morning, or no, maybe even today, that the Neighborhood Design Center has put together a design team for us to evaluate Lady Day Way. So we had retained them for a cost of $350 to put together a professional design of signage, lighting, street calming or traffic calming, greening, on the 200 block of South Durham Street. So we'll be working, we'll be meeting that design crew soon in November, first week of November. I'm going to let Brian talk about recycling. Do you want to talk about recycling, Brian?
Sure. So we have a recycling dumpster scheduled for this weekend, supplied by Weekend Be More, which is a Wheelabrator community project. It will be at a different location from where it normally is placed. It's going to be in front of Wolf Street Academy on Goff Street. So corner of Wolf and Goff, but on the Goff Street side. And we're looking to kick that off at around 8 a.m. through about noon. We'll get the word out on Nextdoor and the other channels. It's going to be basically the same arrangement as it has in the two previous dumpsters we've done. So We Can Be More, we'll have 2 or 3 folks on hand to help load the materials and do some sorting. We'll bring some trash bags where we can take actual trash and keep that from getting into the bin. And then at around noon or 1 o'clock, they'll come and haul it away. So I'll be there for the duration to help load items and sort things, and come and join us for what will hopefully be another successful collection. And hopefully, fingers crossed, this will be the last one we have to do before DPW begins curbside pickups again, which they're saying is going to be on November 1st, but I'm not sure if anybody is going to hold their breath.
Great, thank you. I also wanted to just let everybody know that we do have our second ever UFPIA live auction. And I actually went in today and
Okay, we're gonna go back to Lisa.
slash some of the prices, so the deals are better. Hello? Yeah, my internet connection is unstable. So anyway, so the URL, the link is in the chat. We slashed prices today, this evening, so the deals are better than ever. And we really just, if you can share that with friends and family, there's got to be something on there for everybody. There's some really cool stuff, some really weird stuff, some really beautiful stuff, some really old stuff, and then just stuff that you have to have because it's a fundraiser for beautification. So anyway, thank you to Beth, who's been my co-partner in this incredibly time-consuming, hour-minute draining event. But so we hope that you will support us. And then I think that is it. We will have one more bulk trash dumpster that we're doing in partnership with Fells Prospect, and that's going to be on November 7th. So if you have stuff that you didn't get in the kind of bulk trash dumpster this past in just the past couple weeks ago or weekend, I can't even tell what day it is anymore. Anyway, then we have one more, and then we'll continue doing weekly. We're going to be continually doing monthly cleanups on the second Saturday. If you have any questions, you can email me at beautification@upperfellspoint.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. So Joe needs some names. Jasmine, Joe will need your last name so he can record you as being in the meeting. Beth is Beth Russo, Joe, and GHTHNQ is Dan Harrison. So Jasmine, if you can give Joe your last name. And then we're going to go on to the community garden and Jan.
Sorry, I had to see to unmute. Well, we had the virtual garden ramble video tour with the optional mixology class. We raised $533 for that. So thanks to everybody who participated in that, as well as to all of our hosts that opened up their yards for the tour, as well as to our community gardeners. Also to Josh Espinosa, who gave his music for the video to make it more exciting, but especially to Tom and Aaron, who were our wonderful hosts. So it was a fun event, and it was our first time ever doing something like that. So thanks to everybody for that. For the newsletter, several of our carriers have moved away or can no longer deliver the newsletters. I still need somebody for the route of the 1700 block of Portugal, 400 block of Register, and Griffin Street. It's only about 27 newsletters, would take you about 15, maybe 20 minutes. Is there anybody out there that would be willing to take that route?
I'll do one of them.
It's all one.
Oh, all one. Okay, I'll do them.
Okay, yay, thank you. Okay, and then I'd like to also welcome Caroline Miklos. She's new to the neighborhood and has agreed to deliver to the 100 and 200 blocks of Wolf. Mary Glenn Fowler, she's taking the 300 and 400 blocks of Wolf. Brian Dosher, he's taking Golf, and Bill Miltenberger is taking South Broadway. So thanks to them, and also all of our regular carriers. We now have a box hanging on the garden wall that has extra newsletters in it. So if you didn't get one and would like one, there's some in there, or you can get, just go to our website. And then please support all of our sponsors, as their ads help pay for the printing of our newsletter. So the deadline for November is the 1st of November at 5 p.m. and that will be our last one for the year. We do not do one in December. So if you have anything for that, please send it to the newsletter email. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Let's do Molly, education.
Hello. Well, we met our goal of $1,300 of art supplies from Ms. Bavakwa. Thank you, everybody. We're going to go for a grant, 2021, the Coretta Scott King Children's Book grant award, which gives libraries or schools over 100 titles of the best African-American children's books, and that we'll find out whether that, so stay tuned. That would be a real nice kind of grant to get for the school. We heard from Commodore John Rogers. They are collecting shopping bags, so we're going to help them with that collection. they use them to distribute school materials to students. And Suzanne Bailey has graciously offered her home as a drop-off point at 416 Durham. So this is an appeal for, just your basic shopping bags. So if you've got a couple that you can spare, Suzanne, I assume put them in your mail slot, something like that.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
You're
Okay.
not allowed to put anything in the mailbox, according to the post office. But if it's in the door, that's fine.
You can hang it on the door. Hang it on the door.
Are
you requesting the plastic shopping bags? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, not a plastic. I mean the shopping bags, not the blue things. They're putting notebooks and books and things in them, so they can't be the, just your basic blue plastic, if that makes sense. The real shopping bag type things. So, and they need about 600. Butcher's Hill is also collecting, but so they need a lot. Whatever you have would be great. And the final thing I have is Principal Gaither received an award. The Heart of the Schools Award was presented, just announced a week or two ago, to 5 city principals based on their innovation, their excellence, their leadership, and a strong schools culture. And the winners received $2,500 towards projects at the school. That's kind of reflects on the effort that's going on at the school to make things work. And I can't think of anything else. So that's it. If there aren't any questions, I'm done.
Thank you, Molly.
There seem to be some
Sure.
questions about the bags to be hung on the door. You're saying not petroleum-based bags, but both paper and cloth are okay? Tote bags?
I didn't get into the detail. I do know they're putting heavy things in the bags. So I'm tending towards wanting to say your regular plastic, heavier weight. But if it's a good, strong paper bag, that might, I didn't think to ask that question.
I think they're thinking like the reusable cloth bags, or if you're thinking plastic, it would be more like the durable plastic, like Trader Joe's has a really good durable plastic bag, but not like your run-of-the-mill grab, which I don't think many people do anymore, but the plastic bags you would get at the checkout lane, not those bags, but a cloth reusable bag that I'm sure we're all using to go grocery shopping like that.
Right. So.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Molly. Fundraising. Is anyone here for fundraising?
Asha's not here, and I already gave the report about the ramble, so.
All right. Jeff, land use. I think are you on mute, Jeff? We can't hear you.
He's in the shadows.
Okay. My phone, yeah, okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
So update on the land use guidelines, taking another twist and turn with the development of those. We were working with a group, self-selected group, coming up with ideas. We had concerns that we weren't reaching a broad enough population, representative sample of the population of Upper Fells Point. So we went to the Neighborhood Design Center to see if they could help develop an overall community master plan, help us develop a master plan. And they did it for another organization, Old Goucher, but because we do not qualify for the grants that allow them to do it for free for an organization. And they estimate it would be about $25,000 to $30,000 to do that effort. So they've recommended we go back to planning and begin working with a community planner. And we did meet with a community planner earlier in the summer, but I guess now we'll return to him and see to discuss this a little more targeted, what we're, we were targeting land use guidelines. I think if we go and talk about master plan, maybe he'll be able to give more advice, because guidelines get very specific about things and that can conflict with the city's planning department's overall goals. But if master planning is like right up their alley, so we're gonna reach out to them and see if we can get somewhere with them. So other than that, that land use guideline rewrite is sort of is being pushed off further into the future as we're trying to work this detail out. And then the other update I was going to share is, we're finding out that the zoning regarding, or the bill that allows for short-term rentals, it seems to have some, it can allow for things, it doesn't have good controls if the owner of the rental, short-term rental, is not really on top of things with the people they rent to. So we're finding out, that if there's a nuisance renting an Airbnb next to you, your only response is, between calling the owner and calling the police if there's a noise complaint. We're not sure. We're trying to find out whether the renewal process, whether there's any input from communities in the renewal of these. But it appears that unless there's a violation, which is normally about code, which might be that they don't properly meet the code for the rentals, that they are going to get the license renewed.
There's someone on our block that owns an Airbnb, and they've just been having big parties there. They're disturbing the immediate neighbors, and there's not really a good way to address that. So yeah, like Jeff said, it's sort of like a loophole that they haven't filled in the Airbnb process. So I think Joshua Thompson had talked to an attorney for the planning or for the code enforcement department, and maybe he could give us some guidance, but we haven't heard back from him yet.
Right.
All right.
So I think they have to write their rules, because the legislation was rather vague on it. And I don't think it was a priority. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Safety, Matt Barnes.
Good evening, everyone. I just kind of wanted to give you an update on a few things. National Night Out seemed to be a decent success, even with its abbreviated kind of format. I think we probably had somewhere between 50 or so people come around to the 3 different stations. And I think overall it was a decent success. I know the 200 block of Bank Street or Ann Street did a small fundraiser for, and they sold soup and salad kits. And I think they ended up selling 27 or 28 kits. So I'd say that puts probably at least 15 to 20 people at our station alone. But overall, we were pretty happy with it. And we got to meet some people, gather some camera information, addresses for cameras. And I think I ended up getting 2 block captains out of the deal.
Okay.
And then to segueing into something else then would be, if anyone's interested in being a block captain or offering us their address for their cameras, feel free to email me at safety@upperfellspoint.org. And I can put you on our spreadsheet. And the last item that I'd like to share with you guys would be Morgan State University. The School of Social Work is doing an independent evaluation to examine how aerial surveillance technology is being piloted in Baltimore City will affect violent crime reduction. I'm going to post a link to that survey, probably on Facebook, and I'll get Liz to e-blast it, and we'll probably put it in the newsletter next month. But basically, it's to get your all's feeling on how you feel about it, and if you're okay with it. And it's an anonymous survey. It has I did it myself, and it only takes probably 5 minutes or so. But in case nobody knew here, on May 1st of 2020, Baltimore City launched the aerial surveillance research pilot program, and it ran for about 120 to 180 days. And it collected imagery of around 90% of the city for about 40 hours a week. And the resolution of imagery collected is said to be about 1 pixel per person. So basically make us look like single dots. But like I said, I'll put the link on the Facebook page, and we'll probably put it in the newsletter, and you guys can click on it, fill it out if you'd like. There's also opportunities to do a focus group with Morgan State. If we get a couple people that are interested in that within the community, all we have to do is contact them, it looks like, and they would do a focus group discussing this technique. So that's all I have. If anyone's interested in that, again,
Hey, Matt, that stuff about the surveys in the newsletter.
Oh, it already is? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then we'll put it on the Facebook page then. So, and you'll just click on the link. But otherwise, if anyone's interested, just email us at safety@upperfellspoint.org. That's
Hey,
it.
Matt, do you have any idea if any actual crimes have been solved as a result of this aerial surveillance?
Not a one.
Yeah. What a big surprise that is.
Yeah. And you know what? Those are probably good things to talk to them about and ask them about. And like I said, those are all good things, all good points, and do the survey and voice your opinion on it. So it's very simple.
Thank you, Matt. All right, next up is Kurt with traffic and parking.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Got just a couple quick updates. Department of Transportation is moving forward with the feasibility study for calming measures for Washington and Wolf Street. They just got their notice to proceed from the Board of Estimates, and they will be meeting with consultants to go over the scope of the project. Then DOT will do what I consider the important part, coming to the stakeholders, being us, the community members, and asking for our input on what we would like to see and, possibly modify in the traffic calming measures for Washington Street and Wolf Street. All right, that's all I got on that one right now. All right, but then, as Ryan Dorsey had just mentioned, the complete streets, Baltimore City is working on the manual for that still, and will be some virtual meetings, 4 of them, to go over the draft manual and get community input on what you would want to see in a complete street scenario, whether it would be, a transit stop to take you to the grocery store, or a bicycle bikeway, or a pedestrian walkway, or, signals at the crosswalks. All right, but the dates are Wednesday, October 21st and 28th, and Thursdays, October 22nd and 29th. All the meetings are going to be the same. So if you go to the first one, you can go back, but they're going to be going over the same stuff. There are some Zoom links, so I will be putting this on the Upper Fells Point Improvement Association Facebook page. So if you're interested, you'll be able to just click the Zoom links and go to it. And I'll also post it on Nextdoor. That's about all I really got. Anybody have any questions for me? Cool.
Thank you, Kurt. And now we have David Bishai. Did I say your name correctly? Who's been patiently waiting. He is with the Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, and he's going to talk about the flu shot as it leads up to the COVID-19 shot for next year. So, David.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Hi, I'm David Bishai. I'm really here because I'm a member of District 1 Community Health Action Network. We're a group that came out of Zeke Cohen's office a couple years ago to gather residents of District 1 and to talk about public health. And this year, we really want to bring up influenza vaccines. The city's goal is to get 70% of Baltimore vaccinated against flu vaccine. That number 70% is a target because that number, you may have heard, is the target for where we get herd immunity next year for COVID-19. Now, Baltimore's never come close to vaccinating 70% of its population against the flu. The best we've ever done is to get about 50% of our residents vaccinated. We've got gaps in our population. We right now are seeing that we've only covered about 11% of the city with flu. 21202 and 21231, which I think are Upper Fells, those zip codes are really running at 11 and 12%. And it's October. The flu season generally gets heated up much more towards December and January. So there's still time to get the flu shots. Flu shots are indicated for everybody over 6 months old. The city health department has a terrific map of where to get vaccinated. Fact is that in Baltimore, most of us in Baltimore get vaccinated at a drugstore pharmacy, and your pharmacies are probably going to be the place to go. It's just easier to drop in, and they're very careful with protection against COVID-19. I'm really here because I thought that it would be important for a community to ask questions about the safety of vaccines. This would be the place to come for hearing from neighbors about how they feel about immunization. If we have doubts about the safety of vaccine, neighbors can be important in generating confidence. And so if you do believe that there's a problem, bring it up, and I'd be happy to answer questions. And if you are going to go get your flu vaccine, be very noisy about it. Set an example. Tell your friends and family, post it on your social media, because you do influence others in your belief that vaccination is safe. What I really worry about is that we're going to have this terrific, safe, effective vaccine if it goes through the phase 3 trials, which it's going to do. FDA has promised not to release it without going through the trials. The director said he would rather resign than push out an unsafe vaccine. So if we're lucky and we get a safe vaccine, what a tragedy it would be if our doubts and fears got in the way of us getting out of this mess that we're in, simply because we don't take advantage of something that the scientists have done their due diligence on. So I know you're out of time. I'll pause and get questions, but the main message is get your flu vaccine, be noisy about it, tell people where you're getting it and how it worked out for you.
I got my flu vaccine.
Great, good.
Me too. I got it the Safeway. And it's the first time I ever got one.
Way to go.
So
I have a question.
Just to chime in, if you get your flu vaccine at Safeway, you get a 10% off coupon for up to $200 of groceries, so you can save up to $20.
That's right. I've got mine.
Yeah, that's why I love going there for that. But the question I have is, we learned a lot this year that we never knew was an issue. So they've been talking about what they call an immune response to a vaccine. And I thought I heard that Dr. Redfield said that the typical immune response to a vaccine is only 70% of people get the immune response. Is that what they say about the flu vaccine?
So there's a couple issues with all vaccines. Question number one is, will you create antibodies at all? Second question is, will the antibodies be the right ones to protect you against this year's flu? So both of those questions can let us down. Most of the time, the problem isn't that our bodies don't make the antibodies they're supposed to. It's always a guessing game. The flu is different every year. And so the pharmaceutical companies have to make a forecast of what they think will come to the US next year. And they're not always 100%. So most of the time, we've had bad years and good years, and it's a crapshoot in October. It remains a crapshoot. They can't go back and reformulate it once we know what the antibodies we need really are. So the reason you hear the number 70% is that's an average of years when we hit it just right on, which we can get up to 90%, and years when it's a miss, where we designed a flu vaccine that really didn't cover all of the different strains that are coming out of Asia.
Okay, that's so when you get it right, you tend to get a very high.
It's really
percent,
good.
sounds
Yeah.
like. So
And the
in relation to the coronavirus, we know exactly what
Yeah,
what
the lucky thing
agent
about
is.
coronavirus hasn't really mutated the way influenza does. So if the trials succeed this fall, the virus isn't going to wiggle away from us. It's going to, the flu vaccine that wins in the trials should stay very protective.
I asked the pharmacist at the Safeway even though this was not a vaccine for COVID, if you were to get COVID, would it be helpful in keeping the symptoms down? And he said he thought it would be helpful with the symptoms not being so bad if you were to come in contact with COVID. It won't prevent COVID, but it could make it easier on your body.
Yeah, it's not harmful, except that if you already know you have COVID-19 and you tested positive, you should stay home until you're clear. We don't want you running to the
right.
with COVID.
Right.
Does anybody else have questions? Any more
I
questions?
have one more. Can I ask one more?
Mm-hmm.
Is the not the flu virus, the pneumonia virus, is that a vaccine a good potential to assist you protect from complications of COVID?
I'm not aware that the pneumonia vaccine will help you with the constipation symptoms of COVID. The pneumonia vaccine, unlike flu, it's only indicated for certain groups of the population over 65 and for some children. But I'm not aware, no, I didn't know that it would. No one's brought that to my attention.
Oh, it was a question. I wouldn't know. All right, thanks.
I just have a question. I didn't catch the introduction for you. So could you just, tell us again?
My name is David Bishai. I'm a professor at Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. And I'm with an organization called District 1 Community Health Action Network, and I'll put them in the link so that you can follow up with our group, District 1 Community Health Action Network.
Thank you.
All right.
I appreciate you coming to our meeting.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us, David.
Okay, I'm gonna buzz off now. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have anybody else? I saw Shannon Conway that was here. Did you have anything that you wanted to talk about, Shannon? So she must have left the group. Is there anyone else that has any new business?
Liz, this is Blair.
Yes.
This is for Kurt Schiller. On the 100 block of South Ann Street, there's an area that used to be striped for no parking at the end of the angled parking zone by the former hardware store. So the Department of Transportation or whoever gives out tickets is starting to give people tickets for parking in there, even though the signage says that you can park angled on either side of the sign. So is there a way that we could get the rest of that block striped and maybe have the stripes that are there to indicate don't park in that one space to be maybe painted gray?
I will reach out to Grishay and see what we can
match
get
the street.
Yeah, Blair, I'll reach out to
Do you need me
Grishay
to-
too as our first step.
Okay, do you need me to send you an email or this was okay to just talk about it here?
No, that's fine. You can send one if you want, but this is good enough here too.
Does anybody else have anything? Okay, well, that's a wrap.
Thank you.
All right.